really tough, actually, trying to move someone from unaware of a problem to totally bought into your product philosophy and how you do things on one cold call. We're trying to remove friction, thinking like, what's easier, getting a one-to-one commitment or inviting someone to an already established webinar on a very, very specific and continuing to be tested topic.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Insurance Growth Lab. I'm Callan Harrington, and today I'm joined by Caleb Cramer. Caleb is the Chief Revenue Officer of Launch, where he helps reshape how producers talk about risk, value, and real operational problems. Before that, he's worked at industry leaders on both the tech side and the insurance side at Indium, Ascend, and AgencyZoom. The big reason I wanted to get Caleb on the show was to break down his process for group demos. There's always a debate in the Insurtech space, especially in the agency tech space, is do you have your sales reps provide one-to-one sales demos versus push them into a group demo?
People are now becoming problem sellers, right? Sell the problem, be interested in the problem. We're doing a really, really counterproductive thing. And in our demos, in our group webinars, we're trying to make this thing that they're fighting, this dragon, trying to make it seem like super scary. We're thinking like, if we make this dragon super scary, they'll need us more and they'll be urgent. They'll want to pull the trigger. What I've been finding, and this has been super interesting to me, is actually the best sellers actually do the opposite. They turn that dragon into a little lizard.
For the right company, I think a group demo flow is an excellent way to maximize the resources that you have. And Caleb walked us through the exact process they used at AgencyZoom to bring on thousands of agencies to their CRM product. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and let's get to the show. Caleb, first, let me just say, welcome to the show. For audience members that might not know, Caleb and I worked together for, I remember how many years that actually was, back at the shipyard, where all of us, shipyard, Smart Harbor, where a number of us came from within the Insurtech space and the insurance space just in general. And I think that the issue that we thought could happen was, are we going to take this seriously? Fair? Fair. I think it's fair. But I do want to I'm actually curious, given our time together, why did you decide you wanted to stay in insurance?
Well, I actually left for a cup of coffee. I went to startups.com, started working with other industries. There's this indefinable thing about the industry and the people in the industry that just makes you want to help them. You see them as not having the resources and tools that other verticals just take for granted. Mm-hmm. And so it's really cool introducing this industry to things that might have picked up, learned elsewhere, and just introducing them to these things that can really be game-changing to them.
Now, it's funny because everyone talks about insurance and nobody has any idea on how they got into insurance, right? I think the number one thing that somebody says is, well, I didn't anticipate going to insurance. Well, that nobody anticipates going into insurance. But it is one of those industries where it's really hard to not be in once you're in it. Especially, and I think for me, it's the people. And I started out as an agent. So like that always for me was, I've always had the utmost respect for the agency. I think the agency, especially I would say those Main Street agencies, are the absolute epitome of the small business owner. And to your point, you do see a lot more of that support. And I would say community support, sales support, that's through the roof in the insurance space. But the technology and things like that and being able to automate processes, it's always felt that it's like a step behind. And definitely not to the fault of the agencies. Would you agree?
The only thing I would disagree with is I think there's an emphasis on sales. It's the life's blood of the agency. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's real true sales support like you and I have experienced in our careers.
What do you mean by that specific?
Sales development, the craft of sales. I don't think that is as available in the insurance space.
For me, I think I hear what you're saying, but I think it's more siloed, right? If you go to any of the captives have phenomenal sales training. State Farm, Allstate, formerly Nationwide, American Family, because that is everything. To your point, they've got the roadmap. And I remember when I was at Northwestern Mutual, sales training was phenomenal. When I went independent, you're just on your own. You hope that your network or whatever gets you is whatever kind of training. But if I didn't have that going into it, that would have been a lot more difficult.
Right. So I do feel for the producers that are struggling and flailing and vying for validation, but not really being given any type of roadmap to be a good seller.
Yeah.
Or perfecting the craft of selling.
So you've now done this you've done it on the Insurtech side, you've done it on the service business side, you've been in an agency network. I'm curious, how have those different experiences impacted each additional role that you've had? Is there anything that surprised you a lot when you went from one side to the other?
I guess I didn't fully understand the struggle to differentiate that producers have. I didn't fully appreciate that until I was on the network side. And then it's been a huge revelation being really embedded in an agency now, and building the tool that I am at launch to help with this. That's been the big revelation, that it's trench warfare out there. Everybody considers the upside, that everybody needs the product that brokers are selling. There is tremendous upside in that. So you got a massive TAM, but the downside is it's always rip and replace.
Meaning, if I'm hearing what you're saying that I'm talking to a potential prospect. Insurance is compulsory, so everybody has to have it for the most part. Most insurance is compulsory in the P&C space. And so it's ripping out and replacing. How do we differentiate as an agency? Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. And so just the different flavors, how to do that. It's been fun to study the people that do it successfully, the type of flavors that they do it by, and then the versus the vast majority of how brokers are approaching that differentiation problem.
For me, it was going from being an agent to going to a tech company. To me, the biggest thing that I noticed right away was so often on the tech side, you'll build a product that you think's really good and you think is going to have some monumental impact on that agency. And then you demo it and they're like, well, I don't know if this is going to work. And then I can't tell you how many people I have said, it's like, oh, the agent just doesn't get it. It's like, okay, go. If you've done the job, you understand exactly why that's not going to work. And that doesn't mean, this isn't a problem of, if you ask people what they want, they're going to say, I want a faster horse. It's
that came to mind.
Well, exactly. But have you spent time in that agency? Have you actually saw the workflows? People don't go into the agency. They don't see, as people are going through these different things, understand the different hassles that they have to go through, and then think, how does this tool fit into the workflow that they're doing? That was the biggest thing that I saw.
I'm glad you brought that up, and buckle up, because I blame Dale Carnegie.
Interesting. Not what I saw coming was that Dale Carnegie is the reason. Okay.
Yeah. So everybody's been winning How to Win Friends and Influence People. Would you agree?
Are you asking, do I think that everyone's...
Have you noticed that everybody and their sister has been reading How to Win Friends?
It's popular. Yeah, I would say it's a popular book for sure.
People have heard of it. Yeah. So everyone has latched on to the soundbite, be interested, not interesting, right? And they think that means hounding people with questions on Zoom calls. But really what being interested actually means practically is what you're talking about, like actually doing agency interviews, getting in the trenches with the people that you're trying to serve, like do that deep work, let that compound. So you're coming to them with actually a foundational hypothesis about their life that they can shake their head and agree with versus, hey, I'm going to steal 45 minutes of your time. I'm going to pepper you with questions that's going to feel like an interrogation. Don't worry, I'm being interested in you. It's not a pitch. I think that's where we've gone awry a little bit, and we've missed the script.
As far as people that are serving agencies?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that I think just in general, in this era, in the AI era, if you haven't done your research and you don't come to that with a viewpoint, and that viewpoint better be valid, meaning like it can't just be a viewpoint that insurance is the easiest one, where if you don't know what you're talking about and you talk to an agent, they're not going to give you the time of day. And if you do, they're going to give you a ton of time. Everybody knows that an agent will love to talk about something with somebody that's shown that they've taken it, like they've demonstrated they've done an interest because they've proven that they put the work in to get to that point. I think that's going to be go-to-market in general. You have to do that.
Show up with a hypothesis, even if it's wrong. People love to correct. But what people really don't have any time for, and they're totally fatigued by, is just let's get on and play 20 questions.
Yeah.
They're totally fatigued by that.
I tend to agree. I mean, I think and then, I would challenge any of those sales reps that are in those positions, at whether it's an Insurtech company, a carrier, whatever that might be. If you want to go up market, you better learn that real fast, because there already is zero patience. The best enterprise reps do this all day. They do it all day. They know that business so well that they should be able to be a consultant to that industry and to that business. But now that's table stakes. So you better be an expert at that. I would argue that position's turning almost more into a consulting position than it is a sales position.
Totally. Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily bring you on all day just to talk about this problem.
Not to bash Dale Carnegie.
You did warn me. You did on the way here. You said, I'm going to be going after Dale Carnegie. So if I just look surprised there, I shouldn't have, because this was a fair warning. What I really want to talk about is one of the things I've always been super impressed from a go-to-market perspective that you've executed on are group webinars. And I'm going to get more specific, because I'm sure a lot of people are hearing this and thinking, well, group webinars, that's not that cool. But
no, I invented it.
Yeah, he's the inventor of the group webinar. Mr. WebEx is one of the common challenges, and I heard this a million times from a number of different Insurtechs, is, especially in the early days, you're probably pretty strapped for resources, especially if you haven't raised venture capital. But even if you have, it's not necessarily the best strategy to immediately run and hire 10 sales reps to just start working the 32,500 independent agents. There's a lot of them, so you think that maybe that works, but then you realize that unless you have a really high ACV, which there's not a lot of really high ACV products within the agent space. If it's in the Main Street agent space, it quickly becomes very much not cost effective to just go and do one-to-one demos with every single one of these agents. Now, in the early days, you can make the case, do some things that don't scale, and I could see that point. But where I thought you guys always did, and this is dating back to the AgencyZoom days, when I know you've done so much since then, but like that's where I really remember it. You had a full process on getting people to a group demo and enrolling them. And I would argue it's kind of like a marketing plus sales. That was always the piece that I thought was missing. When did you start thinking about that process versus a one-to-one process?
Can't pinpoint exactly when, but I do agree with doing non-scalable things, right? I do think, especially early in finding that product market fit, you got to do some non-scalable things, but you shouldn't do only non-scalable things. And the largest swath of your reps activity shouldn't be non-scalable things. And if you look at a just cold call, like that's the least amount of leverage you're going to get. It's one-to-one, right? And, I've made a lot of cold calls and I continue to make cold calls, but it's really tough actually trying to move someone from unaware of a problem to totally bought into your product philosophy and how you do things on one cold call, right? And so if we're trying to remove friction, thinking like, what's easier, getting a one-to-one commitment or inviting someone to an already established webinar on a very, very specific and continuing to be tested topic that people can identify with, that yes, I do have this distress in my life, and inviting them into a webinar.
Is it because it's easier? typically, right, you're going to call them and either you're going to do one of two things. You're going to use that initial call to schedule an additional 15 minutes or to schedule a discovery call. So it's a quick intro. I know I'm interruption. I'm going to schedule this call versus, hey, you don't know me. Let me send you a link to the webinar where you can learn more about me. Is that essentially it?
Yeah.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a minute or challenges. And because people may be thinking, well, that feels pretty impersonal. How do you get around that?
Explain yourself.
I'm bringing you on to a webinar where I'm doing a one-to-many and I'm speaking to the category as a whole, as opposed to just speaking to your direct agency.
Those people that are wanting to opt in to the one-on-one experience, they will find a way to opt in to the one-on-one experience. I send you a webinar link. The folks that want to actually engage about their specific agency problem, that think that they're unique, that want to actually discuss things with you one-on-one. That email is a great gateway to start the conversation of actually, like, you guys do this? Can we have a conversation about this directly? Like, the window is not closed.
So you're saying they're self-select. They'll say, I'm not interested in the webinar. This seems interesting. I'd love to have a deeper conversation about this.
Yeah.
So I want to walk through, what does this process actually look like? Are these all marketing driven? Are you doing, and you mentioned calling, are you doing cold calls to then book a demo? What does the actual process look like? Getting like super into the weeds.
I think demand gen marketing, well, it's awesome to have early on. It's just not moving the needle for a sales team.
Why is that?
Because you're usually fighting the battle of brand awareness first. So like if in terms of air cover, marketing for an early product market fit company is, reps would just love it if you're calling and like you get somebody to say yes to have you heard of us, right? That's like the first checkbox.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still hand-to-hand combat trying to get folks to actually engage. So it is a lot of calling. Yeah.
So you've got the list. How are you deciding who to call?
This is where deep work comes into play, where like trying to figure out who's actually experiencing the problem. And this is typically getting into role-based, persona-based segmentation.
What's your process to figure that out?
So first step is to actually try to get some frontline information. So this is where, like, if you haven't done some early customer reviews, early customer interviews, something like I'm a big believer in letting your customers write the problem statements, right? Like you have to like find somebody, right? And early on, you might be burning through a pretty big list, but only to pressure test your problem statement, right? So in the early days, you might be calling 32,000 agencies, testing the problem statement. And then you get some validation on the problem statement. And then you filter which agencies are probably going to be feeling this problem. Well, is this problem because are they feeling because they're a large agency? Are they feeling because they're a small agency? Is it the resource overload or is it lack of resources that are causing this agency to feel this particular problem?
Mm-hmm.
And then within that agency, are there only specific roles that are feeling this? Where does the bottleneck show up first?
Mm-hmm.
And who feels it the strongest? So it's a lot of just, I've got kind of a Mad Libs style framework that I'm honestly happy to send anybody that's interested in this, but it's really not a silver bullet. It's just doing a lot of self-guided meditation on the account
mm-hmm.
and the problem to get to that.
Yeah.
And then if you haven't shrunk the TAM by at least 50%, then you haven't done enough self-guided meditation on it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think you have to start there. So for us, like I think about that from the perspective of, if it's a brand new product, you've never sold it, do 20 customer interviews. And the fastest way you could do that, go to a conference. Mm-hmm. And I think the fastest way I've personally found to pressure test the problem statement and just the quick pitch, nothing. It's so easy to do that at conference because you actually see, like, are they glazing over? Do they not care? Do they just going to get a drink? Or are they like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'm curious. Like, how do you do that? And so we'll do that first and then start to lay out some of the variables that you mentioned. What's the split of personal lines to commercial lines? Or what's the split of admitted lines to non-admitted lines? Are they in a rural area? Are they in the city? How many employees do they have? How many employees do they have on LinkedIn? Just to get a feel for modern looking website versus non-modern looking website, things like that. I totally agree. You have to start there.
I love that you touched on firmographics, demographics, psychographics. All those things matter. But I think a missing step that a lot of insurtechs don't do well is asking themselves, like, okay, why? Why does it matter that, what's the connection between our ICP has 50 to 100 employees. Why does that matter? Why is that catalyzing something in the agency that we can solve? What is it about that employee count that matters? Right? Because a lot of people just stop at Apollo filters, right? And define that as their ICP.
Yes. Well, I'm thinking more from a purely segmentation perspective, meaning like, yeah, everything you're doing, that starts to, like, all of your key messages have to be based off of the actual why and that problem statement and what you're testing for those pitches. 100% agree. I 100% agree. And it's, it's kind of like, what are the 5 whys? What is the actual root of this issue? And that gets back to what you said, like, you got to do customer interviews. If you're skipping that step, you're missing out on so much because they will tell you exactly whatever that pitch needs to be, almost to the T. And they'll tell you, this doesn't even make any sense. Why am I like that? You guys, I don't know, maybe you're doing something that I don't understand, but like this won't work for whatever, like you'll get that exact information. So fast forwarding a little bit, you segmented that agency, you're starting to call. What does that first call look like?
Showing up with a hypothesis, right? If you've done the problem statement work, that deep work, you should show up with a hypothesis, which lets them, is the first opt-in or opt-out point, right? Either it's great to find out then and there that they either identify or not with this thing that you've crafted with very specific boundary conditions in mind.
This thing, meaning the webinar.
The problem statement. Because the problem statement should be reflected. The webinar should be crafted to reflect the key problem statement that you've identified.
So is that call essentially just like a standard cold call with the problem statement and then the ask of coming onto the webinar? And okay, so you've got the cold call, you've called in, they're interested in the webinar. What does that process look like now? I mean, is it enroll them in the webinar? Are you doing any nurture campaigns? Is they leading up to that? Are you offering a one-on-one in addition to the webinar, or what does that look like?
Yeah, always let them opt in to a more intimate version of discovery, right? So all of the follow-up should offer a one-to-one. Your first thing I do is I try to actually get them moved to text, right? I think this is a big missed opportunity. Once they've already opted in, like say like it, something as simple as, hey, if you have any questions in the meantime, like sometimes it's just easier to shoot me a text or reply here through email. Like you'd be surprised how many people are willing to text you.
Well, I was going to say, what is that exact ask? I like that. Can you repeat that again about I think this is a great one. And I would argue whether that's like agencies, any types of sales whatsoever it's night and day easier. So what exactly are you saying? Like if I'm an agent on that call, how are you asking that?
On the call? I'm usually doing this on the follow-up email.
Oh, and they'll reply with their phone number?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I get texts all the time from agencies, companies. Yeah.
Are you asking them to send you your phone number right there?
No. So this is what the email likes. I'm usually trying to provide something of value. Like, hey, I had something that piqued my interest or I thought about them specifically. I'll email them with the webinar information, a little reminder. Hey, you mentioned this thing. I thought you might be interested in this. Give them a little value and then say, sometimes it's just easier to reply or move this to text. Totally fine. I'm totally cool with that. If you are, here's my cell.
Yeah.
Feel free to text me with any questions or anything regarding this. Or worst case, you can always, shoot me an email here.
So they're sending the first text.
Yeah.
Now you're not sending the first text.
No.
Why do you do it that way?
It just feels more appropriate. Whenever I can pull instead of push, I try to pull.
And there's no wrong way to do it. I'm usually the opposite. I'm usually like, if I see their phone number in there, I'm usually going to jump straight to text them first. They probably appreciate it more how you're doing it for sure.
I think if I'm honest, it's because I've gotten so many automated texts right now. We're living in a world that we're trying to decipher. We still have an emphasis on real, and we're trying to decipher what is real and what is not. So if they initiate the text, there's no question that this is the real deal.
Okay, so is there any marketing nurturing campaigns that are going to try to make sure that the so like whether that's email campaigns or whatever that, well, I'm assuming it'd just be email campaigns, to try to increase the attendance rate of that webinar?
Few sequences in the past. I'm a firm believer in once you've had that call, once you've letting the rep own the communication, right? When you say marketing, I'm envisioning this separate entity out there that's using branded slicks and trying to get the brand out there in front of them and as an assistant to the sales rep. Am I reading into that wrong?
No, in the fact that, yes, I am talking about the centralized, like, coming from HubSpot and not HubSpot sequences, but from the actual HubSpot marketing platform, or Pardot or whatever that might be. But not necessarily that it has to be like HTML based and be branded, but it could also be sending it from the rep on their behalf. I'm only thinking, let's use AgencyZoom as an example, right? You guys were doing pretty big numbers in the calls that you were making. Are the reps sending all of those emails leading up to those that are registered, or does marketing play a role in sending out any type of marketing communication to increase the odds that person's going to show?
Marketing did a really good job of presenting the brand personality, the product philosophy, our place in the market. Like that was the drum that they were banging. And I think that's the drum that marketing should bang. We were building individual sequences, crafting individual emails in the personality of the rep that owned that one-on-one communication. Emails, I think, should be getting more and more noisy. I think it should be owned by the rep. It should be the rep's personality and the rep owning that email communication.
So is that rep doing those emails leading up to the demo, the webinar, and doing cold calls? And so how would you prioritize the two of them? What would you put ahead of, or is it when, I guess, are you prioritizing those emails to the agents that have signed up in order to make sure that they attend? Or are you prioritizing the new cold calls to fill that up with as many people as possible?
I think this is where time blocking comes in. I think, right? I think, because one is building at bats, right? Like you'll find out really quick that if that's dried up, you'll really wish that you hadn't let that dry up. So same thing. If you're getting all these at bats, these things are gold. Like you want to nurture them.
Yep.
Right. So like it's and so it's just helping reps time block. So like they actually can do both effectively. Okay.
So you've got these nurturing emails that are going out from the rep to increase the attendance rate at the actual. They're still making cold calls. It's the day of the webinar. Who does the webinar? What does that look like? What does the process look like when the webinar ends? What is it? What is the content of that webinar? Is that a demo? Is that just is this a pure sales webinar where you're doing a demo and maybe talking a little bit about your philosophy? Or is this, because these are, if I remember correctly, these are group demos, but, or is this more of a educational webinar, or is that a separate thing?
There aren't any hard rules here. I'm very opinionated about this next part, but the type of webinar can vary as long as we follow the right story arc. right? A demo can be involved. You may not have a demo, depending on your product, your service, whatever it is. AgencyZoom, we did a bunch of group demos, right? We segmented properly by AMS segmentation, right? Like we've sorted our personas appropriately.
So if they were on Vertafore, they would go here. If they were on Applied, they would take this demo. If they're personal lines heavy, they would go here, or commercial lines, whatever that might be.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it really mattered, right? For our product, it really mattered.
Absolutely.
So first and foremost, a subject matter expert should be hosting the webinar, the group experience. That can be the individual rep. Like it's better when this person that they've opted into, they've developed the most affinity that they have for anybody in your company. They've developed it with that rep. It's best when you can make that rep that allowed them to raise their hand also, they're the subject matter expert.
So are they just scheduling a bunch for their own group demo? How's that work? If it's the rep that's actually delivering the demo?
It can. We had reps that were hunting for themselves. We had reps that were filling the traditional BDR role.
Right.
At Ascend, I was doing the hunting and the gathering and the demoing and the presenting and the conferencing. It depends on your unit economics. It depends on what type of BDR support you have or not, right? I don't think there's any downside into getting everybody in the sales staff the intimacy with the customer problem to be able to actually perform pretty well on that webinar. It'll help them reverse engineer great prospecting calls.
Okay, so you got them on the webinar. You got a subject matter expert. Let's just use the group demos example. So they know they're going into it to see a demo. This is essentially a sales call, more or less. They do the demo. After the demo is wrapped? Because I'm assuming they're going through, some sort of light deck and then going into the actual demo itself, and it's a very scripted demo. Do you open it up for Q&A? Do you open it up for people to say, hey, I want to see this part? What does that look like?
I have evolved a bit on this.
Okay.
I think the only constant in sales is that stuff stops working. In a group environment, I think you have to, you mentioned scripted, I think you have to have it little moments scripted. I think anybody that thinks they're going into a product tour, like we need to talk, it's going to be no bueno. Nobody wants a full product tour. Nobody cares that much about your product. I'm pretty convicted in there being a pretty set character arc, let's call it. So if people are coming into a webinar, they're coming because they've identified themselves as distressed in some way. All you've got right now is you've got a pretty good hook in the form of your webinar title. You've pitched the webinar thesis pretty well, and they've identified with it, right? And so they're coming in and they've identified that they have a current state that they don't like. But that's kind of it. That's where we're at. Mm-hmm. So they're also coming to the webinar and like understanding that they have a little bit of their autonomy still. They're not on a one-on-one call. They're not committing to kind of laying it all bare for one person. They can kind of hide in numbers, right? And so like they're part of 12 people, 15 people, 20 people that also identify this way, and they can learn together. There's confidence that comes in a group setting. So the first step is to actually frame and validate their current state. Make them say like, that's right. Make them basically valid in their position that's why I thought that this was what this was about, what this was going to solve. And I was right. I should be here. Like the first part of your, mm-hmm. Even if it's a demo, whatever, it needs to serve that function. I thought this was what it was and I'm right. Right. Because if it's 30 minutes, an hour, my job in that group experience is to take 1, 5, 20 people from being the person in distress to being the hero. Like, that's my job. If we're thinking about what's the job to be done in the webinar, that's the job to be done. I'm trying to take them from being the person in distress to them identifying themselves as an enabled hero to tackle this problem. Right? So the next thing that people get really, really, really wrong is picking on Dale again, because people are now becoming problem sellers, right? Sell the problem, be interested in the problem. We're doing a really, really counterproductive thing. And in our demos, in our group webinars, we're trying to make this thing that they're fighting, this dragon, we're trying to make it seem like super scary. And we're thinking, like, if we make this dragon super scary, they'll need us more and they'll be urgent. They'll want to pull the trigger, right? So what I've been finding, and this has been super interesting to me, is actually the best sellers, they actually do the opposite. They turn that dragon into a little lizard. It's not so bad. It's very surmountable. This is not an insurmountable problem. We can fix this, guys. You do have a problem. I've already validated it. Yes, this is how you feel. You're totally valid. The next step is actually, might seem bad. You're totally valid in how you feel. It's not that bad. We can fix it, right? Making them feel empowered that, all right, we're actually going to get to the bottom of this here. It's something you can fix. Third thing, important to then give them the sword, right? Here's the problem. Most products companies, like the instinct is to make yourself the hero, make the company the hero, right? And then, so there's this weird dichotomy, like we're trying to make people feel bad in demos all the time, like it's their fault and I need to save you. But if we make them feel empowered, we can give them a way to fix it on their own. If you're following me.
Yes and no. I mean, a lot of this is similar to the story brand framework. But what I'm curious about is on a group demo. Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting way of framing it, as far as like, let's go into the problem, validate it. Very, like, that's very challenger sale, right? Like, and then don't just belabor the pain the entire time. Size up the pain, acknowledge that this is a real pain. We get that, and there's real consequences if you don't fix this pain.
Yeah.
But then that's where kind of the story brand comes in. Be the guide that shows them why this pain is a pain, but it's actually a very solvable pain. And we're going to show you by the end of this, and then make the customer the hero of the journey, right? As opposed to, we're not the heroes. We're the guides. They're the heroes of this story. We're just guiding them to get to that end result. Is that right?
Yep.
So that makes sense to me a lot on an educational content webinar. On a group demo, how are you doing that without going through the product? Or you're not saying that. You're saying you are going through that product.
You go through the product, but there's a difference between highly curated moments in the product and what usually happens in demos. And that is, let me tell you, this thing was built. Let me tell you the code it's on. Let me tell you all this stuff, because you care. You totally care. No, I'm going to pick 4 moments at most that I can tie to that problem that we had already articulated at the beginning. I validated, like I'm directing a movie here with very specific scenes. And when I say give them their own sword, it's actually counterintuitive, but it's really, really helpful. And it creates more and more trust. If you can give them a way to solve it on their own, like it might be spreadsheets, right? Show them the inefficient way.
I got you.
It might be spreadsheets. We figured it out, like, so much so that here's a way for you to handle on it. You've actually got a tool that you've got your own sword. It can work okay. Like, we are their guide to the extent that, like, we're helping them even if it's without our product.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I mean by giving them their own sword.
Yeah.
And yes, I am doing highly curated glimpses into the product.
I'm a firm believer of that. I think most of my content strategy is based around that. This is what you could do. You could do this on your own. Because the reality is most people won't. If they do, great. If you're in that percentage that will do that on your own, and the pain's not big enough for you to need the service or product that somebody offers, great, do it on your own. But most want somebody else to execute on their behalf, if it makes sense.
Forget the term. There's psychological phenomenon that is tied to the making the dragon a lizard thing. It's our brains really, really want to put things in compartments and containers and like make order out of chaos. And like, that's the first step to doing that. Right. Where the demos come into play, it's important to show them scenarios where they like imagine themselves winning and defeating the dragon. Right. And that's where those scenarios come into play. But it's really crucial to like really fight the urge to go deep.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't actually think you should deviate. I think I've learned from doing this wrong a couple times and like being super accommodating. It can derail a whole group demo, a group webinar if you're too accommodating. If Callan asks, "Hey, what about this? Can it do this?" You betcha. Let's click into that. You've made one friend, you've created 20 enemies, right? Potentially.
Or you just turned them out. People tune out. It doesn't apply to them, so you don't really care.
Totally. And you lost them. So that's an opportunity to have some sort of strategy to siphon people off to one-on-one conversations. Yes, totally can. Love to show you that later. Like, text me about that. This is another way to get them on text. You put your cell phone in the chat, and you say, anybody has any specific questions, any specific scenarios, can't cover today, but odds are we can cover it. So text me. Text me a specific scenario. We'll dig in. Great way to get into text.
Yeah. What happens after that demo?
You're sorting interest. Like, if you do it right, you've got some self-selection into either try not to do another demo, try to just have a really, really strong offer with de-risked free offer, with free trial, money back in it, whatever. And let the next thing be an onboarding call where we can still have built-in discovery.
So that's first. What do you do with the bucket that attended but didn't take that path?
Call
immediately. How fast?
I don't have any rules on this. I don't really have any conviction. It's only too long.
I have an opinion on this.
Okay.
Immediately. I want them still at their computer.
Yeah.
Like absolutely right there. Because 9 times out of 10, they're probably ready to go. But I hear you on many of them will just self-select. I'll put that up on the webinar. 9 times out of 10, they'll just go, they'll sign up right there while they're still on it. And the second that gets off, get those leads, tee them up, give them to RevOps pass them out to the reps, and then call those and try to get those enrolled immediately. Because that's when that iron is the hottest. Now, okay, what about that group that didn't attend?
I think they should be just put into the same motion. They should be considered. They're still a contact. They're not a lead yet.
What motion is this? Like, what did you guys in AgencyZoom when somebody didn't attend? What did you guys do?
We would still call them. Like, there seems to be some discovery discrepancy, right?
Yeah.
So figure out, what's the delta between they were interested and they didn't vote with their eyeballs.
So they go into a sequence of registered, didn't attend. You're calling them. Is the goal of that to get them on the next webinar, or is the goal of that to then just skip? Like, they didn't attend the webinar. We're just going into discovery and trying to do a demo one-on-one.
If you've done your deep work appropriately, you should have a lot of valuable giveaways to support your value prop, your position in the market. So like it should be heavy gifts, heavy.
What's that? Can you give some examples of that?
Yeah. So with launch, we do, the whole point of it is just emphasizing assessment-based selling, right? Filling the gap between getting that frontline information in the four walls of the business and actually making them feel unique. And so a giveaway that I have a driver map diagram that has really helped some reps visualize actually tying frontline operations of a business to their premium being affected, right? And so that's one of my favorite giveaways that gets the best feedback. I give them that. It's a Miro board right now, and it's interactive, and I give them that. So you should have things like that you've thought through that can actually really impact your end user.
And what is the ask when you send that?
Here you go.
Here you go's not an ask.
Exactly.
So why are you not asking for something on that?
We're asked out, man.
So this is somebody that registered but didn't attend, and you're saying, "Hey, sorry we missed you on the webinar. Wanted to make sure that you had this. Feel free to give us a call whenever you get a chance."
Sorry we missed you on the webinar. This has been super helpful to people in the past. I hope you get a lot out of it, right?
When you calling them again?
Probably 3 days later if they're that early in the sequence.
Oh, this is just the first step in the sequence.
Yeah, man. I think another thing that I honestly butt heads with other sales leaders on is like, I think there's way too much chess move stuffing. Everyone's trying to like do 5 different chess moves in one email and trying to win a deal in a voicemail. And so if there's so much pressure in each touch point, like you're actually gonna ruin the efficacy of that touch point because it's gonna get bloated.
And I guess one of the things I want to do, because I know we've went pretty deep on this, is why would somebody not do this? Why would somebody do, and outside of, obviously one-on-one is pretty effective. Or maybe we could ask that question too, does it make sense even if you have a higher ACV to do group demos? But why would somebody not do this?
The only reason I can come up with is if you haven't validated your problem statement yet and you don't have enough of a point of view, I would say it's too early. You should
fair
be able to absolutely run circles around the problem. You should come up with a super convicted point of view on those.
So do one-to-ones until that point because you can get more information. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that.
And I do want to be clear. In this motion, the whole point of getting somebody on a text, like we're trying to get from the first email follow-up after that first call, we're trying to get to more and more intimate with the prospect. It's to let them opt into something very non-committal, but it's letting them vote that they're interested, right? The webinar. I'm still trying to, webinar might be in 3 weeks. We might really connect. And in the follow-up and in that process, we might be getting on 2, 3 different calls one-on-one before that webinar even shows up. It's just something to, it doesn't mean that we have to hold off on pursuing that prospect just because they committed to a webinar.
And does that become cost prohibitive? Meaning, if you've only got one sales rep, are you trying to do as many one-on-ones as possible, even if they've already signed up for that webinar?
One-on-one communication, right? But if it's an ACV constraint, either have self-service, right? And so what you're telling them is if they want to short circuit this and go to onboarding and your offer is really compelling where it's been totally de-risked, like they might sign up on their own and go through onboarding before the webinar even occurs, right? If you have an ACV that you don't mind doing a one-on-one demo and getting into the intimate path, build in outlets in your process, in your sequence, in your outreach, in your follow-up that can invite them down this short circuit.
Yeah.
Right? It can be it doesn't have to be what I hear a lot, the argument against this is that, well, if they're answering, why not push for like the highest conversion like that you can get, like
the white glove service?
Yeah. Why not do that? And this is high leverage. You're building trust because what it's telling folks is like, we've been there, done that. We've essentially solved this problem to the extent that like we've created this event around it. Other people are coming. It's a big enough problem that like it appeals to somebody other than you, right? And it's a trust building exercise along with an educational.
Yeah, I know. I see the purpose. I think you got to figure out what works best. But like with somebody, especially if somebody's got limited resources, I mean, you could fire up a Monster Connect or a Connect and Sell, rip through an absolute ton of these. For me, it's more, you'll get more out of it because you're bringing a high volume of people to this. as opposed to, spending all of your time on a one-on-one, especially when you've got limited resources. But I would argue just, you could always look at the financials and see if it makes sense. So
yeah, one-on-one until you figure it out. What's compelling. You've got a validated problem statement. And what gets really fun is the webinar topics, the group demo topics can maybe test that stuff. Who's showing up to this topic? Who's showing up to that topic? Oh, a lot of people signed up. No one showed up to this one. What's going on here? So there's a lot of stuff that you can A/B test.
Yeah, last question I have for you is if you were starting these, let's just use AgencyZoom as an example. If you were starting those from scratch now knowing what you know now, what is one thing that you would have done differently?
I mean, other than like knowing that we had something and throwing more fuel on the fire, always kick myself for that. Just adding more reps, more leverage, trying to get further faster, because it was a pretty cool moment. We had kind of captured the attention of the market and in hindsight, like, I think we could have pushed harder.
Oh, no, I think that's a great answer. So what I'm hearing you say is, if you're out here, you're doing this and you're seeing pretty good conversions and you're seeing good, the amount of people that you're getting to these demos and it's working and you're keeping those clients, put fuel on that fire.
Yeah.
Like you've got something to go for. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And it is one of those things where you sometimes do capture lightning in a bottle and you got to take advantage of it because it does not last forever. Yeah. Caleb, thanks for coming on today, brother. It's been excellent.
Thanks, buddy.
I hope you enjoyed Caleb and I's conversation. I love talking about his group demo process because I think it's a very easy tactic to test out if you've never done them before. If you want to learn more about Caleb, you could find him on LinkedIn in the show notes. Also, if you like this episode, you could find me on LinkedIn to let me know. And if you really want to support the show, subscribe to us on YouTube, give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Every time you do, it's very much appreciated. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next week.